good evening. Thank you for being here this evening for what we're now going to reconvene the January 23rd, 2018 regularly scheduled School Board of Trustees for Richland 2, where we've just come back from executive session discussing student expulsions, student appeals, employment recommendations, and employment releases and in-district transfers. We also had the opportunity, this being Board Appreciation Month, has had wonderful hospitality of some of our leadership in the district and some of our principals in the district who served us a nice meal prior to coming in tonight. So we just want to thank them and just also appreciate my fellow board members for the work that they do. And thank you guys for being here. At this time, we're going to go ahead and move in to our agenda with 3.1, which is an inspirational moment, Pledge of Allegiance. Ms. Agostini.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Tonight's inspirational moment will be provided by Ms. Regina Dilley. Ms. Dilley has been teaching for 14 years, the last 6 at Spring Valley High School. Formerly, she was a nurse. Ms. Dilley currently serves as Richland 2's Teacher of the Year. Ms. Dilley.
Share their portfolios with the class. One by one, they really got so caught up in their emotions that it became very difficult for them at times to even talk. They discussed the hard work, dedication, especially the love that y'all show all those kids every day at Lonnie B. They talked about how excited they were to work with what they call the littles, and how they hated to leave. They really hated for that partnership to end. Most of all, they talked really about how their teacher hearts really grew, during that time. And how not only did the kids need them, they found that in some of their most difficult things, when things weren't going well for them, that they needed those littles too, to kind of support them along the way. It struck me then just how really important it is, the work that we do each and every day in Richland too. We set an example every day that's, every single day that has a very profound effect on each of our children. The poet Stephen Sondheim said, "Careful the things you say, children will listen. Careful the things you do, children will see and they will learn. Children may not obey, but they will listen. They will look to you for which way to turn and to learn what to be." We're so very fortunate here in Richland to offer classes that allow students that opportunity to go out and experience firsthand our why as teachers. What is even better, though, in looking to us, those students are able to find their why as well, and I can tell you many of them are doing that right here in the district. So, Dr. Davis, we've got some coming back to you in a few years. So, thank you. I almost forgot the pledge, sorry. If you'll please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ms. Dilley, and thank you, Ms. Agostini. I did want to mention that Mr. Manning is not present, as you can tell, with a vacant seat over there, but he has had a prior commitment, and so he will be out this evening. Now we'll move forward on to our approval of the agenda. May I get a motion?
moved.
Moved by Ms. Mackey, second by Mr. Shad. If no discussion, we'll vote. Motion passes 6-0. Thank you very much. Next up, we have our student focus, Dr. Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's a pleasure to have Principal of Lonnie B. Nelson, Ms. Karen Beeman, come forth to share with us a video illustrating how her school uses the 4 squares as a framework for success. Ms. Beeman.
Thank you so
You're
much.
welcome.
Will you go get the mic from Mr. Kinney? Thank you. Like little ducklings. Come stand in. There you go. I am the very proud principal of Lonnie B. Nelson Elementary. Come on up.
I'm John DeZalo. I'm Kabir Kara.
I'm Kamaya Sundie.
I'm Joy Jenkins.
I'm Logan Wells, and please enjoy our video.
We are a premier school in a premier district. Welcome to Lonnie B. Nelson.
Learning to lead, leading to learn, betters myself, home, school, and world. Richland 2 focuses on the 4 squares to success: learning, character, community, and joy. We use this as our framework for student success at Lonnie B. Nelson.
At Lonnie B, we are all about the learning. We are an avid showcase school. Our teachers work hard to create experiences like the Ellis Island simulation and lots of learning. We went to the Berry Island in Charleston to get the full impact of what we learned in class. Students learn from one another as they collaborate in groups and to synergize to solve problems. Technology helps us create and collaborate. I love having my own Chromebook. Our magnet program, the Academy for Civic Engagement, or ACE, is built around learning about government, economics, and service learning. We love to learn at Lonnie B. Nelson.
What is character? Your character is who you are and who you try to be even when no one's looking. We show character at Lonnie B. Nelson with our study of the 7 Habits, our CEO breakfast that showcases a chief example for others. Students receive 4 Beyond Read bracelets, I like the blue one, for making good choices. We also have quarterly celebrations to recognize goals and achievements for each student.
A community is a group of people helping out with all different types of things like neighborhoods, schools, churches, and maybe even work. I see community at Lonnie B. Nelson when we have our mentors come for lunch once a month. We have family nights too. When I was in 3rd grade, I remember receiving dictionaries from Spring Valley Rotary, and we have a great partnership with North Point Community Church. I love our Veterans Day Parade because that's really nice. And our career day helps me think about what I want to do when I grow up because I want to be an actress.
Joy means having a heart full of kindness and having a lot of fun. We do lots of things that bring us joy at Lonnie B. We have fun days like Field Day and Arts Day. We even have parades that celebrate characters. We get to dress up during Spirit Weeks and even drink chocolate and wear pajamas before winter break. Our spring fling is really fun, and we even do a joke of the day on our news show.
In order to have a premier school district, you have to have a premier school board.
Here's a small token of our appreciation. Thanks for all you do. We are thankful for you.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you.
Well, thank you guys so much. That was well-produced video, and we appreciate it. You guys are stars, superstars. Were there any questions or comments from the board? Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Beeman. Thank you so much. Okay, next up we have our legislative update, 6.1. Ms. Mackey.
Thank you, Mr. Plank. In the essence of brevity tonight, we're going to highlight just 2 or 3 things that are going on. The South Carolina General Assembly reconvened for the second year of a 2-year legislative session on Tuesday, January 9th. The School Boards Association, not last week, but the week before last, had a press conference at the State House. And at that time, there were several Richland 2 board members who were able to be there. Ms. Agostini, Dr. Elkins Johnson, and I were able to attend the press conference at the State House. And the House Education and Public Works Committee Chair, Rita Allison, spoke. Superintendent Molly Spearman spoke. South Carolina School Board Association Executive Director Scott Price and the new president, Wesley Hightower, addressed the media just in recognition of School Board Association's Appreciation Month. And there were several Richland 1 school board members there. It was a good showing from around the state, so a nice time was had. In all honesty, we, from what we've surmised, K-12 will likely take a slight back seat this session to regulatory issues in the session. There's a lot going on with SCANA and the VC Summers issue, and that is a hot topic item right now, and so K-12 is on the agenda, but what's pressing right now is SCANA, so we're just monitoring the things that are going on with education, of course. School bus vetoes, hallelujah. The school bus veto was overridden. The governor, of course, vetoed school bus funding in $20.5 million. It was overridden. What that means at this point is that the process will be begun by the State Department of Education to start looking at replacing older buses. It doesn't mean that all buses are going to be replaced, but they will start looking at the process to replace the oldest buses, and I think some of those buses are probably as old as some of our schools at this juncture. School start dates, one of the things that the South Carolina School Board Association wanted our help with as a school board, as a community, as local districts, is to talk to our legislators and people with some influence with regard to mandatory start dates. There's a bill now that's asking that local school boards be given some flexibility and set their own school date within some certain parameters. And this is probably the only time that it's going to, I think it was on the calendar last year, and if it fails this year, it'll be hard to get it back up. So for people who, are talking in your communities, try to talk up being in support of local school boards being able to set their own, local school districts rather, being able to set their own school district. And just of mention, Representative Todd Rutherford has been appointed to House Ways and Means, and it's always good to have a county member from your delegation who's on Ways and Means, the money-making engine for the House side of things anyway. So we're excited to see another Richland County member on Ways and Means. And budget deliberations will begin on or about February 20th in the House. That's all for now, unless there are any questions at this time.
Any questions?
And I'm sorry, I'm hoarse. I'm getting over something. I'm over it. Don't have my voice yet, so I apologize.
Thank you, Ms. Mackey. Appreciate the thorough report. Are there any questions or comments from the board? No, I appreciate that. We've talked as a board about being intentional about our advocacy efforts, and as we hear more and more about this in the news, teacher shortages, bus issues, fully funding education. There are a variety of things that are critically important. So we, as a board, are meeting again for a mid-year retreat here at R2I2 to discuss a variety of issues from what we set out in the beginning of the year to do, and this will be one of the items that we will tackle about organizing and just becoming a little bit more laser focused in this arena. So thank you so much, Ms. Mackey, for leading that. At this time, we'll now move on to the approval of the consent agenda. May I get a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to move that we approve our consent agenda.
Motion made by Ms. Agostini. May I get a second? Second by Mr. Shad. If there's no discussion, we'll take a vote. Bless you. Motion passes 6-0. Thank you. Next up is our first public participation. We have no one signed up. However, if you'd like to address the board, please do so now. Okay. Seeing no one, we'll move on to item 9, voting on executive session items. First up is 9.1, employment recommendations. Tonight, we don't have any employment recommendations that require a vote. The in-district transfers releases that was handled through a consent agenda. We'll move to 9.2, which is student expulsions. May I get a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make the motion that for student number 1, we uphold the expulsion. For student number 2, we uphold the expulsion.
Okay, motion's been made by Ms. Agostini. May I get a second? Second by Dr. Caution Parker. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. Motion passes 6-0. Thank you. Next up, 9.3, student appeals. May I get a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make the motion that for student number 1, student number 2, deny the appeal. Student number 3, deny the appeal.
Motion made by Ms. Agostini. May I get a second? Second by Dr. Caution Parker. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. Motion passes 6-0. Thank you again. Next up is item 10.1, which is under old business action requests. We'll move into our policy revisions. Dr. Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, members of the board, this evening we bring before you the following policies for approval. Policy IC, school year, and policy KDB, the public's right to know, freedom of information. If you have any questions, Dr. Marshall Franklin is ready to answer.
Dr. Franklin, did you have any comments prior to us asking?
Yes, I have a follow-up for policy IC. There was discussion at the last board meeting about identifying an agreed-upon date for publishing the calendar. And what the administration will do is make that available in an administrative rule and provide it in the next board brief,
Okay.
instead of listing it in the policy.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments while Dr. Okay, may I get a motion to approve the revisions as stated? Moved by Mr. Shad. May I get a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Mackey. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. Motion passes 6-0. Thank you. Next up is item number 11, new business, no action requests, and a variety of proposals and reports. We'll start with 11.1, policy revisions. Dr. Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, Mr. Chair, members of the board, we're bringing before you the following policies this evening for proposal. Those policies are IHAM, health education, IHAQ, career transition to work education, and JLD, school counseling.
Thank you, Dr. Davis. Dr. Franklin, any?
On all three of these policies, the source would be the annual policy updates that came as a result of legislative changes.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, comments from the board?
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Agostini.
I have on policy IHAQ, the career transition to work education. On the second page, under parental participation, for a comment, basically, the district will encourage parental participation in the clusters of study system by requiring annual parental, and then there are a couple of comments during this. We're requiring the parents to come to an annual meeting, or should we be offering it for the parents? My interpretation is that we're requiring the parents to come. As a high school parent, I've had the opportunity to come.
And the requirement is put upon the school. We are required to provide the opportunity. You're absolutely correct. And we are required to meet a certain percentage of face-to-face contacts. So that requirement is not saying that the parent has to come at all costs, but that requirement is basically put upon the school. We are required to
offer it.
To offer, exactly.
Right, and I understand what you're saying.
To offer it and to reach it. So we have to offer many opportunities for that parent to come. And so we kind of do that throughout the course of the year.
Ms. Agostini, if I may jump in on this, just so I follow you, it starts with the district will encourage parental participation, and then it goes on requiring.
Correct.
Is that?
By requiring annual parent. But to me, it's sounding like you're requiring the parents to go. Now, I have been a parent that has gone, and I have been that parent also that has not gone. I'm just.
Correct.
I would like to just see a little bit of rewording on that.
Yeah, clean up the language a little bit.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
But to me, this implies that you're requiring the parent to attend. And then my second question is, legal guardian has been stricken twice in this. Was that?
I don't know what the rationale was for the state board in sending that down. I don't remember what the comments were on striking legal guardian, but that's something that definitely can be put back in.
I'm wondering if we can check on that, because most of our policies have included the legal guardian as well. And that's my only question on the career transition to work education. I have questions on the following policy, too.
If I may then, on this particular policy, are there any other questions or comments? All right, hearing none, go ahead, Ms. Agostini.
All right, my next question on school counseling, I've noticed that we're trending now toward the word counseling instead of guidance.
Correct. Absolutely.
Can
Oh,
you?
that's a great question.
Okay.
That, and really it's not new. This really brings us in line with national standards. Nationally, our title has switched from guidance to school counseling. School counseling is much more inclusive of of the functions that school counselors actually perform, and not just guidance, which basically implies advising, focused solely on career aspirations of students. School counseling encompasses the social, emotional aspects, as well as the academic and career aspects. So this language really catches us up to national standards. However, as a district, I must say, we have already been trending toward that in our language about our school counseling program. So we've been referring to ourselves in our district as school counselors for at least 4 years.
Okay, I've got a couple more questions
Yes.
on this one, too. So down below where, to ensure that this service is provided to all students, and then it goes through a list. All children are unique. and are to be treated with respect, which lends to my next question, or the next point. Every student can achieve at high levels. I am more in tune with working to their fullest potential. To me, this sounds like that all children, or every student can achieve at high levels, that we're setting the same high level for each student.
And I understand what you're saying, and this is a belief statement, just the belief that every student can achieve at high levels. What may be a high level for you may not be a high level for Mr. Shad. You know, it's going to be dependent upon.
You gotta love real life examples.
I'm so sorry. He knows where that. He knows exactly what I'm saying. So we do look at each student independently, but a level that high is not a concrete term, and it's a belief statement.
Well, and I appreciate that, but that's sort of my point. If it's a belief statement, can we maybe rework that belief statement so that it's more inclusive to everybody and not just a high level, but to their fullest potential or something like that?
Sure.
And then my final comment on this one is just below that: a positive self-concept leads to responsible and productive citizenship. Fostering that positive self-concept is the responsibility, and we've switched it, of the school first, home, and community. I would love to see us switch it back to of the home, school, and community.
Okay.
So that we make the families take the lead on this, and we're there to support them.
Sure.
Those are my thoughts.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Agostini. Any other questions or comments on JLD?
Mr. Chair.
Ms. Shad.
I'm sorry, Dr. Morgan, could you tell us who you are and what you do for those who are not in attendance right now?
Okay. My name is Otasha Morgan, and I am the lead school counselor for the district, and in that capacity, I supervise our school counseling programs and a lot of other things. But that's what's on paper.
All right, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Before we move to the next policy, for the Utes who were in here from Lonnie B, if you guys end up leaving ahead of time, just want to make sure you know how much we appreciated what you did tonight, and your that's challenging to get up in front of a bunch of people and talk. So good job. Back to then, any questions or comments on the remaining policy? All right. Thank you, Dr. Franklin. All right, we'll now move on to 11.2, proposal of the 2018-19 school year calendar. Dr. Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, members of the board, we will have Assistant Superintendent Mr. Keith Price will come forward to share with you the proposal for the 2018-2019 school year calendar. Mr. Price.
Good evening, Chairman Plank, Dr. Davis, and ladies and gentlemen of the board. It's my privilege tonight to bring to you the 2018-19 school year calendar proposal. And I thought what I'd do is start by giving you a little history as to where we were and how we got to this proposal that you're going to see tonight. We started with the Faculty Advisory Committee and the Parent Advisory Committee. And this year we made them very much a part of the process. And we started with some general guidelines of specific dates and things to remember when planning out the calendar. And then what we did is we turned the challenge over to them and invited them to submit proposals for what our 18-19 calendar should look like. From that, we got back from the FAC 28 submissions and from the parents 8 different submissions. And this bullet says very few were the same. I went through every submission, and I think I can honestly say that no one was the same as another. So that was 36 different proposals that we were using to consider. So some proposals couldn't be considered. For example, we didn't have a 180 days that added up, so we couldn't consider that proposal. Or maybe the holidays were entered incorrectly that kind of threw that one off. Or the counts were off, looking at unbalanced semesters, or perhaps the school year ending on a Monday, which would not be an ideal situation just to get to our 180th day. But then we started looking for the most common trends from all of these 36 different submissions. And then what we did is we pitched those proposals to the two different groups, and then we added some outside of the box proposals, things to ponder, things to consider. So what were the most common trends from the submissions? A 3-day Thanksgiving break, spring break for 5 days. This one was very popular, a 2-day break for students in October, where we take our district in-service day on one day, followed up by a built-in holiday there in October. This came in very handy this year, as you may remember, that we had some inclement weather early in the school year, and we were able to utilize that second day in October as a makeup day before we ever got to winter weather. Another common trend was a solid 10-day winter break. And then there were some outside the box proposals, calendars that included some things that may not be so typical. Perhaps the first day of school is after Labor Day. That would mean that the last day of school landed on June 18th. It's outside of the box. Another option was a nice long winter break, a 12-day winter break. That had some impact on when the school year may end or how many built-in break days for students we would have throughout the year. Another was 7 days of in-service or work days built in before students begin. So front-loading opportunities for teachers to engage in professional development and planning and preparation for the start of the school year. And 11 days of winter break and spring break a week earlier than it has been in the past. Another is to shorten the number of days before students return, and only 2 days of Thanksgiving break, which would mean we would be getting out of school a little bit earlier than normal. 5 days of Thanksgiving break, kind of having a fall break built in where we would have 2 extra days off. I see a lot of nods. This can get very popular. But it's kind of like a moving puzzle. When you add a couple of days off here, that means you add on a couple of days someplace else. And it's important to remember that no matter how we move these pieces around, we must have 180 days of school. So all these breaks sound really nice until you see how long your school year may actually end up being. A shortened winter break, 6 days of in-service rather than 5 or 7 before the first day. Spring break, the beginning of April, 8 days of in-service before students begin, only 2 days for Thanksgiving break. But then that would lead to no break for students for in-service or work days or for teachers January, February, or March. But the last day of school would be May 31st. So you'd get out before June rolled around. So there are a lot of different options, as you can tell, that you could consider. And we considered all of them as a group with the FAC and the Parent Advisory Council. And so we had a vote. We took these different proposals and we put them up on posters all in this room. We gave them out to the 2 councils in advance, a month in advance, and we asked them to take time, consider them, talk to your neighbors, talk to your coworkers, and be ready to cast your vote for the proposals that you found most appealing. So after they had some considerable time to look through all of these different proposals, they came back to their next meeting and they cast their vote. And here's the ironic thing and the really neat thing. The same 4 most popular options for parents were the same 4 most popular options for faculty. That makes this part a lot easier if those 2 parties agree. We took the top 4 options that were voted on and we emailed them out to every employee in the district and every parent in the district, and we asked for them to give us feedback and to weigh in. And here are those results. There were 4 different options. You see option 1, 2, 3, and 4 across the top. And then we broke those groups up into 3 different groups. Parents of a student in Richland 2, employees in Richland 2, and then parents who are also employees of Richland 2. And as you glance through, you can see that we had somewhere around 4,000 people that submitted a vote in this survey. And if you look very closely, you may see a common trend. And again, this lines up very, very nicely. If you look at option 2 for parents of a student in Richland 2, that was the most popular option. For employees, option 2 was the most popular option. And for parents who are also employees, option 2 was the most popular option. So guess which one we're bringing forward to you for consideration? Option 2. So what is included in the option 2 calendar? 7 days of in-service and work days prior to the first day of school for students. So we're front-loading some of our PD and our opportunities to get ready. The first day of school is on a Wednesday. Not having a full week of school to come back from the summer is very popular, both with students and with teachers, to kind of ease back into the school year, then have a weekend, and then we're off and running with a full week after that. October 18th and 19th, that 2-day break in October was included. We have Election Day this year. 3 days for Thanksgiving break was what was decided on. And there's an 11-day winter break. We actually start winter break on a Friday, and then we have 2 complete weeks, Monday through Friday, to follow it up. That was a very popular option with our parents for whenever they're planning vacations, travel arrangements, and those sorts of things, that they had 2 complete weeks that they could plan around. Our typical days in January and February for Martin Luther King Day and President's Day, and you can see that the way this calendar shook out is there is a break for students and for teachers in January, February, March, and April. With this year's proposal, the 5-day spring break precedes Easter Sunday rather than following Easter Sunday as it does in the current year. Memorial Day, students and employees will have off on May 27th. The last day of school is on a Thursday, which means the last work day for teachers is on a Friday rather than a Saturday. Which, with the feedback, I could, some of the comments we got back from the feedback about even thinking about working on a Saturday were probably not safe to put up on the screen. So, but here were some comments that we did come back, and with over 3,000 responses, it was impossible to kind of capture all of them. But these were the trends. And these are from employees. I like having the long winter break, long weekend in January, and students' last day of school on June 6th. I chose this calendar because the last day for teachers is a Friday instead of a Saturday. I think it's beneficial to have 7 days at the beginning of the year. Takes stress off teachers. I like the option of the first full week off in January. This seems to offer a more balanced calendar, even just by a few days. As a mom and an educator, I spent time looking at the options and think the week into January might prove more rest and restart for all, time with family, etc. And finally, excellent plan. There's a balance during the spring months with work days and holidays without a long 8 to 9 weeks of no breaks, and allows for the needed work days to prepare for the school year instead of using personal time. Love this option. Some comments from parents. I like that the kids would be out of school on the Friday before Christmas and not return until the Monday after New Year's. This will allow more time for traveling and spending time with family. Teachers need time to work in their classrooms and plans, so 7 days of in-service would be great for them. All 3 of my children in elementary school have a very hard time returning to school after a 3 to 4 day weekend or longer breaks. Their bodies and minds get out of their routine, leading them to struggle the following week to recall what it was they were working on prior to their break. I chose the option that gave them mostly 3-day weekends rather than 4, so there are less times they will struggle to fall back into routine. Great options. Thanks for including us and asking for feedback. And finally, moving spring break to the 2nd or 3rd week of April is much better than the current calendar. Allowing students to close out a week of school before a holiday break and begin fresh at the beginning of the week is far better than starting in the middle of the week. And as you can imagine, many of these things that they found in favor for this proposal with their comments, There were some other comments that were exactly the opposite. When you have that much feedback, you're going to get some on both sides of the fence. So the growing trends that start to perk up more and more through these surveys, I noticed these things. 5-day Thanksgiving break requests. That was in the feedback comments quite often. But I want you to know that a 5-day Thanksgiving break was one of the options that was considered. It just wasn't the most popular option. Non-broken weeks for winter break. That seems to be a big thing for families. Start earlier and end earlier. There were some questions in the comment field about, well, why don't we start earlier so we can wrap up first semester before winter break and then start second semester when we return? It's one of the most common and the number one request of our students. Unfortunately, we are bound by law not to begin school before the third Monday in August. So while we would really like to start our school year earlier, right now we're not allowed to. I think the good news is, Ms. Mackey, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is a topic that is being taken up for discussion in the legislative session currently. With my boss's permission and approval, I have contacted all of our legislators and asked them to take a look at this. And please consider turning this responsibility back over to local school districts so that they can make decisions that are in the best interest of their community rather than one school-wide mandated start date. Exams before winter break, more days of prep before the first day of school, and no Saturday as a work day. That was a big one. Didn't realize how big that was until we got these comments back. So that is a really big one. So with that said, here is your proposal for the 2018-19 school calendar that's been provided for you. You've got the highlights that I've shared with you at this point. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Price, and I'll tell you, that was so thorough. I don't know if there are any questions or comments, but I am going to throw it out. Mr. Shad.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dr. Price?
No, doctor, just
I'm going to keep saying it, Dr. Price.
Yes, sir.
I know.
I appreciate that.
Yes,
if only
absolutely.
it were that easy.
We want you to strive for high levels. So
It's in process. It's in the process.
In the
yes,
process.
Sir. One of our TAP participants commented just this week that we can speak those kinds of things into existence.
Speaking
so
into
that's
existence.
What we're working on.
That's right. Absolutely. To touch back on what Ms. Mackey said, and just to give some historical background, the reason it's written into the law that we cannot start before the third Monday in August is because the coastal part of this state, for tourism reasons, was able to convince our General Assembly and, of course, the governor to sign for this to be a law that impacts the entire state. So I would strongly encourage everyone under the sound of my voice to contact your legislators, the delegation, and encourage your friends and family in other parts of the state to do the same. I'm encouraged that it is on the docket, so to speak, but this will, we have had to operate under this and try to be as creative as possible and be responsive to our faculty and parents, and most importantly, our students. Now that I am a parent of 2 high school girls, I recognize now the difficulty in having, and I'm gonna call it a winter break slide, where we are still in the first semester because of this time constraint, and we would like to take a reasonable break, because you really got a choice. You either take a reasonable break, just put the books away and that's it, but then we run the risk that they won't be ready when it's time for exams in January, or they don't really have a good break because they are studying, they're distracted from what we're doing as a family, and this could be resolved if we were allowed to start earlier. And as you said, I think that was one of the common themes. If you start early, then you'll end early. And guess what, coastal region? They may come there in late May or early June, and you'll still get whatever dollars that you feel you're entitled to. Thank you. That's all I had to say.
Thank you, Mr. Shad.
Thank you, Ms. Shad. Dr. Elkins Johnson.
Mr. Price, I'd like to just say thank you for that detailed and thorough report. And I, too, being an educator, really didn't enjoy going to work that last day on a Saturday. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson. Ms. Agostini, and then Dr. Caution Parker.
I would like to echo what everyone else said thank you for the thorough report. Again, I'm thrilled that we reached out to the faculty advisory and the parent advisory to lead us in coming up with choices and then having all these different groups vote. Halfway through your presentation, I was thinking, how do I get you on my Facebook page and that whole presentation? Because I would love not for people to have to go to and sit through the whole board meeting, but to have Mr. Price's presentation as a front part of our website so people can still hear the whole rationing and reasoning behind why we made these decisions to start school when we did. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Agostini. Dr. Caution Parker.
Hats off to you, Mr. Price. I did it for years. Hats off to you.
Thank you.
I really like the idea of having the parents more involved in decision-making as opposed to just the faculty advisory, and that's the way it used to be. But I can surely appreciate everything you've done. This is a lot of work, and a lot goes into developing the calendar. But I, too, would like to echo what Mr. Shad said, to make sure our legislators know that we need to make a decision about when we start school and when we end school within our district. Not just us, but all school districts. And it used to be that way. How much money do we get from the coast tourism and all that, you know? But anyway, this is really good, very good.
Thank you, Dr. Koshbar. And I'd be remiss if I didn't send in some appreciation to Miss Libby Roof. She gifted this process to me this year.
Oh, she did?
And but she left a great foundation to build from, and I believe it was her work that brought the Parent Advisory Council into this process. So you have to give credit to Ms. Roof.
Thank you, Dr. Caution Parker. Ms. Mackey, any comments?
No, Mr. Price, you just take all the credit.
Yeah, thank you for sharing the details of what goes on beyond that. For what it's worth, with regard to the mandatory school start date, the county delegation members with whom I've spoken, not all of them so far, didn't necessarily have strong opinions one way or the other, so our opinions do matter a lot. They do want to know how we feel about this. The people who have the strongest opinions are the coastal delegation. So they would be very inclined to hear what we have to say about this.
Thank you, Ms. Mackey. And I guess one last little plug for that is, in my business, in other organizations here at the school district, it's not uncommon to be given the charge to be an advocate and to call your legislator. And we have a tendency to sit there and hear that and know that's what we should do. Yeah, we leave the room and we move on, and it's easy to forget, thinking, the person to the left or the person to the right may do that. The reality is, when you talk to the legislators, there isn't much response. And so, and one of their top statements when you have legislators speak to groups is saying, hey, call us, because we want to know what you think. It helps our job a lot easier, yet we are a big group with kind of a small voice at this point. So the charge is to, one, look online and find out who your legislator is. Two, make that call. It's not uncommon for us to reach out to that delegation about other issues, and they will call you back, and they will call you back fairly quickly, and because it helps guide their decisions. And if they don't hear, there are going to be organizations, lobbying groups that are going to persuade and have their ear. And if there is revenue into the state in a particular region, then great. Let that start when they want. But we talk about local governance, and we're about to talk about the Educate Every Student Succeeds Act here in a minute, and that's about returning some local governance. And it's interesting how sometimes it depends on what it is, though. And we want to be able to govern our district the way we'd like to govern it. So, last charge, just make sure you reach out, say hi, introduce yourself, and talk to them about this topic. With that, thank you, Mr. Price. I appreciate that. At this point, we'll move on to 11.3, the Every Student Succeeds Act report. Dr. Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, members of the board, we have before us Dr. John Arnold, who will share with us some information and provide an update regarding the Every Student Succeeds Act, also known as ESA. Dr. Arnold.
Thank you. Chairman Plank. Am I on? Chairman Plank, Dr. Davis, members of the board, it's my pleasure to share a brief overview of the state's new accountability plan, South Carolina Succeeds. South Carolina Succeeds is a consolidated plan. It's designed to meet the requirements of both federal and state legislation. There are two long-term goals as part of the plan. Goal 1, by 2035, 90% of students will graduate college, career, and citizenship ready. And Goal 2, beginning with the 2020 graduating class, the state, each district, and each high school should increase by 5% annually the percentage of students who graduate college, career, and citizenship ready. The plan also has provisions for interim goals, which we will talk about just a little bit later. We'll begin by looking at how elementary and middle schools will earn points under the new system. Academic achievement points will be based on the state-mandated ELA, English Language Arts, and math tests. Academic progress points will be based on student growth from one year to the next on those same state ELA and math tests. Now, within that 35 points, half of that measure will be based on the growth of all students, and half will be based on the growth of the lowest performing 20% of students. English language proficiency points will be earned based on the percent of students who meet or exceed their annual growth target on Access for L's. Preparing for success points will be earned by student achievement on the state-mandated science and social studies tests. And the effective learning environment will be measured by a student survey. High schools will end their points in a slightly different manner. Academic achievement points will be based on the English 1 and Algebra 1 end of course scores. The graduation rate will continue to be a 4-year adjusted cohort model. But beginning in 2018, students who transfer to adult education remain part of the cohort and count for the high school. Once again, English language proficiency points will be based on the percent of students who meet their annual growth target on Access for L's. College and career readiness will be based on the percent of students who graduate college and or career ready, and I'll explain that a little further in just a moment. Preparing for success will be measured by the student achievement on Biology 1 and U.S. History and Constitution end of course tests. And again, the effective learning environment will be measured by a student survey. I mentioned the college and career readiness a moment ago. Students may demonstrate that they are college ready by scoring a 20 or higher on the ACT, scoring a 1020 or higher on the SAT, scoring a 3 or higher on selected AP course exams, scoring a 4 or higher on selected IB exams, or completing 6 hours in selected dual enrollment courses with a grade of C or higher. Students may demonstrate they are career ready by being a CATE completer and earning a national industry credential where it's applicable, earning silver, gold, or platinum national certification on the work keys, scoring a 31 or higher on ASVAB, or completing a registered apprenticeship. So that is 9 ways that they have to be able to demonstrate either college or career readiness. I mentioned the interim goals earlier. The long-term plan is for 90% of students to graduate college and career ready. For elementary and middle schools, the way that they would demonstrate that is by having 90% of their students score level 2 or higher. That would equate to approaches expectations on the SC Ready, and then a 70 or higher on the end of course exams. So I'm going to use a couple of fictitious elementary schools, you may recognize the names, as a demonstration for the interim targets. Our first school in 2017, Franklin Elementary, had the baseline year in 2017, 84.84% of their students scored at level 2. This means that Franklin Elementary will need to increase its percent of students scoring level 2 or higher by 5.16% in order to get to that 90% in 2035. In order to meet the interim targets, which were established at 3-year increments, Franklin Elementary needs to increase to 85.70 by 2020, and then to 86.56 by 2023, and so on. Essentially, this means that Franklin Elementary will need to increase its percent of students scoring level 2 or higher by 0.287, an average of 0.287 per year. Now we'll look at Shealy Elementary School. In 2017, 63.44% of Shealy Elementary students scored at level 2 or higher. So that's their baseline. They will need to increase their percent of students scoring level 2 or higher by 26.56% in order to get to 90% in 2035. In order to meet that goal, they're going to need to average an increase of almost 1.5% per year. As with previous accountability plans, South Carolina Succeeds provides for an annual rating for all schools. The rating each school receives will be based on the school's relative position as determined by the number of points the school earns. I'm going to use middle schools for example. There are 374 middle schools in South Carolina. In 2017, based on the results, they will be ranked, 2018, they will be ranked from 1 through 374. The top 15% of schools, about 56 schools, will receive a rating of excellent. The next 20% of schools, 57 through 131, will receive a rating of good. The next 35% of schools will be ranked as average. The next 20% as below average. And of course, our bottom 10% will be ranked as unsatisfactory. Didn't want to leave out Mr. Price, so we got Price Middle School as our example here. So how will that's going to be the ratings for the first year. We know 15% will be excellent, 10% will be unsatisfactory. But moving into year 2, how is that going to work? Continuing with this fictitious example, we see that Price Middle School ranked 56th in the state. They were right there at that 15%. And they had a composite score of 75.63. That composite score then becomes the cut score needed for middle schools to be rated excellent after year 1. The cut scores will be determined for the other levels in the same manner. Please be aware that schools can move from one rating to another by surpassing or by falling below a cut score. So for example, if Price Middle School's composite score in 2019 was to drop just to 74.12, they would be below the cut score to be rated excellent and then would be rated good. And finally, in order to provide some stability so that we don't have too much of a moving target, the cut scores will be held steady for 5 years. This concludes a very brief overview of a very complicated accountability plan. At this point, I would be happy to attempt to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Dr. Arnold. Are there any questions or comments from the board? Dr. Davis? Mr. Shedd?
Thank you for this great presentation, Doctor. These are the standards that are given to us from the state. This is state law. And it's really just an editorial comment. My hope and optimism And idealism is that we are going to set our own standards above the state standard so that we can be who we say we are, and that's the premier district in the country, not just the state. So I'd love for us to have our standards higher so that we can have something more to reach for. And even if we just by chance fail there, we have definitely met our standards. So that's just the editorial comment for our administration.
Thank you, Ms.
Go and do likewise.
Thank you, Ms. Shedd. Dr. Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to share just briefly, there's been a lot of conversation about the accountability model as we were developing the model, was being developed with commentary from South Carolina's Superintendent's Roundtable, as well as the EOC, as well as State Department of Education. One of the things I want to share with our parents and with our community at large is that there is some concern with the initial year model. One of the things that Dr. Arnold shared with us just briefly is that at the very beginning of this school year, at the very beginning of this model, regardless of how a school performs, only 15% of schools will be rated excellent. So if everybody exceeds beyond what the state set as a score, it does not matter. Only 15% of students will be considered, 15% of schools will be considered excellent in this state. All schools, by the way this model is designed, basically are saying that every school can't be considered a good school, or every school can't be considered an excellent school, or every school can't be considered an average school. We are basically forced into an accountability model and forced into a competition. The concern is that it's going to create or breed this type of environment where schools will not work collaboratively with one another and share best practices. Because in order for one school to necessarily get into an excellent rating, another school would have to be bumped down. And so there will be competition among schools, not simply from district to district, but maybe within districts that we have to be concerned for. So I ask parents as they look at these ratings when they come out next year to remember that only 15% of our schools will be considered excellent. And then 10% of our schools have to be unsatisfactory. Not that they're performing at an unsatisfactory rate, but they have to be considered unsatisfactory because that's where the percentages are set. We could have easily set the cut scores after we've gotten this year's data in and given schools an opportunity to move up or down based on their performance to their peer schools or like schools. So that's something that we need to keep in mind as we're looking at schools and schools ratings, because I know that's very, very important. But as you can see, sometimes it can be a 10th of a point or 100th of a point could literally put you in a different category based on your performance this year. And so although we are striving to be premier, we are on that path and we are all working in that direction. But this is something that I think that should be public knowledge as we are looking at our accountability model for next year. Thank you for the opportunity to share that, Mr.
Thank you, Dr. Davis. Thanks for the clarification. Ms. Mackey?
Quick question, as this becomes reality, do we have any thoughts as to how we will enlighten our parents and community who look at school ratings as, blueprints to how they select schools, to have them understand the synopsis you've so eloquently shared just now? Because that's important.
Yeah, we have plans on how we will communicate with each individual school, that school's rating and that school's performance. The most important thing for our parents, and I think we do a wonderful job in Richland 2, as a Richland 2 community as far as our parents are concerned, is giving an opportunity to visit schools and visit classrooms and visit and speak with administrators and speak with teachers. And that's what happens when I think your school district is a community school district. You get an opportunity to interact on a personal level and get a feel for yourself about what a school is, what type of learning environment is being provided for your school. And we will do additional things to make sure that our parents are aware of what that rating. I'm confident our ratings will be fine. However, I'm speaking from a position for the state of South Carolina. there are going to be some districts that, regardless of how much they improve, they will never get out of that rating, which would create the perception that education is not possible, that every school in our state could be considered an excellent school. I just don't subscribe to that narrative that that's not possible.
Thank you, Ms. Mackey. Thank you, Dr. Davis. Any other questions or comments? Thank you for a great report, Dr. Arnold. I will say that the nice thing about the culture that has been established in Richland, too, through Dr. Ham previously and through the transition and with Dr. Davis, is to your point about collaboration within schools, within the district. I'd like to think that our Richland 2 family is one in which we will work hard to continue to lift each other up and to continue to share best practices, and that's just the tone we've set. So I appreciate that commentary. Thank you, Dr. Arnold. This time we're going to go ahead and move on. We have 11.4, which is going to be our report on the charter school annual report. Dr. Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, members of the board, we have our annual charter school report will be shared by Dr. Perry Mills, who is the principal of the Richland 2 Charter High School. Dr. Mills.
All right. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Board Chair, Mr. Palank, Superintendent Dr. Davis, members of the Richland 2 Board of Trustees, and the executive staff. Tough act to follow, Dr. I appreciate that. Tonight, I'm here to share with you an annual report at the Richland 2 Charter High School. As some of you may know, this is my first year as of July, so I'm 6 months deep into the position as the new principal there. I'm enjoying every moment of it. Our first slide, if you would, lists our, I guess I'm supposed to do that, huh? Lists our board members, and I think we have at least 3 here this evening, if they would stand real quickly, just to acknowledge them that are here tonight. Obviously, everyone could not make it, but 3 of our awesome board members are here with me tonight. I don't have their names listed, but also I have, I think, 4 of my staff members, my assistant principal, school counselor. Let's make sure I look at Dr. Morgan at that one. Our lab facilitator and my administrative assistant are here tonight also in the meeting. I won't read all these slides. I was given the information of how long I had, so I'm going to go as quickly as I can through, but you all, I think, do have these slides. Our mission remains the same. I do want to go back real quickly based on our mission and give a thanks to Richland 2 School Board of Trustees and the executive staff. This sponsorship and partnership that I've been able to learn more about over the last few months have been great. I'm still learning the connections and what we can do together and what we're doing for our students here in Richland 2. Our goals, we have 3 goals. Again, I won't go over all the goals. The goals were created several years ago when the charter was created. In 2016, I do believe there was some tweaking of those goals with Will Anderson at the time, Dr. Davis, I think the previous principal, and maybe a few others. But real quickly, as a point of percentage, we had 25 graduates last year at our school. 92% of those graduates in 2017, 92% went on to college, workplace, and the military. There's only 2 that I could not identify to contact where they are. But we think they're doing well. We still get calls all the time from those students and different students. Goal 2, we talked about the readiness certificate. 80% of our students did earn National Career Readiness Certificate based on their performance on the ACT work keys. And there's some slides later on in the presentation that I'll talk more about our ACT scores. And goal 3, we're constantly trying to get our students either out of the building in front of other people or have them come into the building to speak with our students. We're steadily working with internships. I think it was Scanner that recently came to us, and they're looking to get our students inside of a field study, offering jobs and opportunities for our students. So again, our goal, just like in Richland School District 2, continues to get our students prepared for life outside of school. Our enrollment for 2016-17, as you can see on day 45 to day 180, fluctuated just a little bit, but we currently can hold up to 120 students at the Charter High School, and this is where we were 2016-17. As of about 4 o'clock this afternoon, I think with my administrative assistant and I going into the second semester, we're at 118 today. And so I have 2 slots for any students who are looking for a different opportunity. We have 2 more positions there at the school. Some of our scores. Our end of course exam with Algebra 1, Biology, English 1, and U.S. History. The first three primarily with our freshmen in our building. If you notice 2016-17, a pretty large drop in algebra. And I bring that up because it's very obvious on the board, and I want to share why I think that happened. We did lose the math teacher prior to this time frame in 2016. 2016-17 school year, we started off without a math teacher. We did have a tutor that would come in even, but the building did not have a math teacher at all. They were given a letter of agreement to a teacher later on in the school year. Unfortunately, I didn't want to say this part, but I'll just share it. Every fit is not always a good fit. That math teacher is no longer with us, and we now have a new math teacher. So we did start this year with a new math teacher. So we've had some hurdles in our algebra. Right now, I think we're on the right trajectory to do well for the upcoming year. I can't wait to come back January next year to show you that other color I'm going to use for next year to show the difference in algebra. Biology and U.S. History, we do not have a teacher for either one of those courses in our building right now. One of the things that the board has been talking to me about is trying to go ahead and hire. I've been communicating with Human Resources, and we are going to hire a science teacher for the building this year to help with those science scores. So we will have now English, math, and science in the building. English 1, actually it was a slight increase, which we appreciate the increase up to 80%. So those are our scores for the end of course exams for the 3 years listed here, 15 through 17. Our student achievement, the 11th grade ACT, I think Dr. Arnold mentioned 20 was a mark that we were trying to reach as a state for ACT. We've had slight increases in our composite at 17.9, just a slight decrease in English, increase in math 18.9, and these are our 11th grade students that took the ACT test during the last school year. And these numbers are from our state report card. I promise I did not make these up. The work keys, again, applied math was an increase from 57 to 70% over the year. Reading for information and our locating information. So our students are doing fairly well, and we still have other measures that we're trying to put in place for the upcoming school year to improve these scores, to make them even higher than what they are now, and to maintain a certain level of academic ability for our students. This slide hurts my feelings a little bit every time I look at it, but I also want to briefly describe some of the reasons why our graduation rate look the way it does in comparison to what we're used to hearing in a traditional school. A lot of our students do come to us having given the traditional school an opportunity. Maybe it did work, maybe it did not work, looking for a different environment. Many of our students have come to us 1 or more years behind. Using the 9GR of when they started high school and their anticipated graduation is what's going to consider our graduation rate. So as you can tell, our graduation rate has not been very good, and that is part of our reason. We're still trying to think of ways we can improve the graduation rate. One of the things that happens when we get students probably coming to us every other week. I think I interviewed 4 students yesterday, and even this afternoon I had a young man who decided that he didn't want to do school a few years ago. He came back today asking to get back into school. He's almost 20 years old, and he has less than 5 credits. So those are students. I don't want to turn students away, but at the same time, I told him we have to have the conversation about what is realistic with you and what other routes can we do. But currently, this year, I have 23 seniors in the building, and 32% of those students that are in the 12th grade are tracking on time from their 9GR, which means the other 68% are not. So again, that's one of the struggles we have with the student population that we have and what we can do to get them back on track. Our school climate perception of our students, this again was reported through the State Department. It was about, from 2015 to 2017, was an average of 30% participation with our students. And so students are faring pretty well. And I think 30% of our population is a fairly decent amount of participation from the students. Our parent perception, very similar to last year. And I looked at some of the information that was presented last year, and one of the concerns I think I heard last year was the low number of parent participation. that number only increased by 2. So the participation for the parent survey is still extremely low this year, with less than 10% of parents participating. What I am looking to do next year, and I spoke to the district about this, Dr. Arnold, is to send it out electronically, and also to have it automatically generate to send back to those who did not complete it by a certain date, just not to pester them, but to try to get that feedback. I want to share with the parents and the community that I can make those changes if I know what you need me to change. I'd really want to hear their voice. So hopefully next year that slide will also change to show a little bit more participation with our parents. I spoke about graduates early. Again, 3 in college, 3 in the military, 17 are employed, and 2 that we were unable to contact. What makes us unique as a charter high school within the district, a lot of people are starting to learn more about our flexible school day, our blended learning environment. Our blended learning environment is going to be even more blended next year with plans that we have in place to increase our face-to-face time and time students are in the school. We still serve students in a small school experience. Again, no more than 120 students in the building. Our state high school diploma is not necessarily a unique thing because charter schools offer diplomas, but we are we're primarily a virtual school. That's why it's somewhat unique being a virtual school and still offering the South Carolina high school diploma. Career Ready 101 work keys, proficiency-based, and a strong academic support, personalized attention and tutoring. And I'm going to speak very briefly about a tutoring opportunity that I'm looking toward engaging in the near future at the very end. Curriculum that we use, Fuel Ed or PEAK, that's the Richland 2 virtual program that our students are signed up for, Career Ready 101, and we also have students enrolled in our virtual SC courses. The impact on Richland 2, we hope to still assist the district in having fewer students leave our district altogether, going to other online charter schools, help to reduce the dropout rate across the district. Those students who are not making it or having troubles in their home school, we hope to still help out with those students. Increase the school choice options, improve parental options and satisfaction, address medical and emotional needs of our students. We do have a lot of students who cannot physically make it to school as frequently as they need to in the traditional school, and our school fits that particular school with their medical needs. Additional options for homebound students and increased academic assistance and supervision for our students in online classes. Real quickly, before I get to the question, I was going to talk about the tutoring opportunities. We were, matter of fact, this morning, the first email I read this morning was from the State Department of Education. We were honored a $60,000 grant to allow me to do a special project in the building. And what I plan to do with that building, with that project, is to have a 24-hour one-on-one live tutoring for our students. So our students now will have access, just as they would go to Sylvan. Our students at 10 o'clock at night doing homework, they're stuck, they can go online 24/7, call up their tutor to help them get through what they're doing, to help them with their academics. And that's going to be extremely beneficial for those classes I have where I don't have a science teacher or a social studies teacher. So those students will have 24/7 access designated just for that. A part of that program also has ACT preparation. So those ACT scores that we have, we hope to also encourage our students who take an ACT to use this program. It's paid for through the grant, available to all students to use at any given time. It's like a bank hours a bank of hours. If you need 30 minutes deducted from the 2,000, so on and so forth, to use those hours. And I mentioned the increase in face-to-face, and outside of that, just another reminder, we were talking to our legislators and different people. We do have a visit tomorrow from U.S. Representative Joe Wilson. He's going to be in the building tomorrow because we are celebrating National School Choice Week this week. So if you all want a nice yellow scarf, I have plenty in the trunk. So
thank you, Dr.
That concludes my presentation. If there are any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Mills. Any questions or comments from the board? Dr. Elkins-Johnson.
Thank you so much for that report. I'm not going to elaborate a lot because I think many of you know my concerns that I've had with the charter school for many, many years. I think at least 3 or 4 years I expressed my concern of students not performing as well as they should. And a lot of my feedback was just to encourage the administration and the teachers and the students to work a little harder. So my heart is really broken to see this, but I know we do have a new staff. I just hope and pray that we truly get the teachers that we need, because the students there are our future leaders, and we don't want to set students up to fail. And I'm really saddened, because this is truly, and if you come to board meetings, if you watch me, I'm very passionate about doing what's right for all of our students and making sure they have a quality and certified teacher in front of them teaching them. So I'm just disappointed, but again, I know that you guys are new. Just to my fellow board members, I think we do have to make sure that we take the charter school very seriously, as we do all of our schools. And I do want to know what measures are in place for accepting students, because one of my concerns was that we were just accepting students not for their best interest, but to raise numbers. And when we're talking about students that's already failing in just the regular school setting that we have, are we really doing a justice for these students to allow them to come into a charter school where most of their coursework is online? If it's very difficult for them to be able to advance to the next level with a teacher in front of them, are we really setting them up for success when we are now placing them online? The second question is, I always had a concern about the sign-in procedure, because as you know, with the charter school, it's very flexible. It's a flexible learning environment, and we cater to that, and we want that, because not all students can learn in a traditional setting. But we had students that will come in and sign in and work for about an hour and leave for the next 3 or 4 hours and come back and work for 30 minutes and then not get anything done. So what procedures now do you have in place for those students? And thirdly, I will not support any more 9th graders going over to the charter school, because I think we need to get on point to make sure we're up, increasing our graduation rate, and we're having teachers in place, because we know as educators, and I'm a current educator as well, that students start in 9th grade, and if we set them up to fail in 9th grade, it is so hard for them to be successful 10th through 12th grade. And I'll just stop right there, but I will say, again for the record, that this charter school has been a grave concern of mine for the last 3 or 4 years, and if you go back and you look at these presentations, you will see me speak out that we needed to make some changes, and it took us a very long time to make those changes, so I'm saddened by that. But I'm also excited to see that we have made some progress in new administration and that we're going to move forward. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Well, to answer the first question, we've created a document that I sit down with every single child who comes to the school with their parent, and I go over this list, and I won't read it verbatim, but it says characteristics of a successful charter high school student. A student may find it difficult if you, and I go down this list, and basically what I'm asking the parent and the child, tell me whether or not this is you, and if this is not you, this may not be the place for you. And I tell them very openly that this school does not fit every student. I use myself as a prime example. When I worked on my doctorate degree, when I was at Blythewood Academy, I got in my car on Fridays and I drove to Charlotte to class. I cannot do online. I know my strengths. I'm not an online student. And I tell these students that you have to know your strengths and weaknesses. Unfortunately, there are a lot of parents who they're so distraught or interested in just doing something different. They may not be as truthful as I want them to be when I ask these questions. And so that's something I say, well, let's do a 45-day trial, or let's do a trial. Let's just not throw them out there and do this. So we're working on ways of doing this to better inform them of what we offer, what we do not offer, what we can and cannot do. One thing I want to do, and I think we're in the process of doing this now, I want to do a very brief clip on our webpage to show a day of a student in Richland 2 Charter High School. So as they look at our website, they have an idea even before walking in the door. But we're going to continue to talk to them. I meet with every single one before the application is processed and approved. If it's a student that has a special needs because of our population, I do have a part-time special education teacher. I'm asking that the school that the students came from, as well as one of our representatives, have a special IP meeting to see if this is the best placement, because they know that student a lot better than we do coming in the door. And so we want to make sure we're trying to do those things. So I definitely understand the concerns. I have some of the same concerns in a short period of time. Your second question about the attendance, one of the things that we did, because I saw the exact same thing happening, so I hired Mr. Upchurch because he has so many more skills than I don't have. So we have a new ID, and what we have our students do, instead of signing in, I have them scan in from the front office with security. Also, all of our teachers have a barcode, bar scanner. They can scan them in. They also have to be scanned out. It automatically generates their time in and time out on a spreadsheet that we all can see live all the time. And on Mondays, my administrative assistant make a phone call home and say, your child did not make the required time this week. So we are making reports to the parents that your child was not in the building. We also took it another step because we had a lot of, I don't have my ID. So Perry Mills sits back and think, when I think, Alan does, thank God. So we now have a barcode on their cell phone. They don't leave their cell phones home. They may leave their ID. So we put a barcode in their cell phones, and so guess what? Hold up your cell phone. We will still scan you in and out. So we've done that as a measure also. So we're trying, we're thinking every day, and we'll make you proud, promise.
And let me just say this too. Mr. Upchurch, thank you so much for being a part of the charter school. I worked with you before at Ridgeview High School, so I know your potential, I know your skill set, so I know that we're getting ready to move in the right direction. So I'm grateful to have you at the charter school.
Thank you, Dr. Ocean Johnson. Any other questions, comments?
Mr. Chair.
Ms. Shad?
Mr. Chair, thank you. Ms. Mills, this Algebra 1, I'm sure you agree this is totally unacceptable.
Oh, yes.
And I know this was before your tenure, but how long was the math teacher not there?
Almost a semester, from my understanding.
What did the students do when there was no teacher there to teach Algebra 1?
Well, again, just like with their science class and their social studies class, they have their online teacher assigned to them. They can ask questions to the teacher of record. We did have a tutor, I think Mrs. Semino, a lot of you may know Mrs. Semino. Mrs. Semino, from my understanding, was awesome. She was not there all day, every day. And also Ms. Myers, I think, at Ridgeview High School, she also came in the evening. So in the absence of that teacher, they tried to bring someone in, maybe not full-time every day, but that was a big gap. And yes, I do understand it's unacceptable, and that's why we're trying to make sure we get on the right side of right now.
Are you all fully staffed now?
Yes, we are. Well, outside of the science teacher, but that's a position I'm going to create. So once I create the position, I'll add a science teacher.
And the graduation rate, you don't have to get into too much detail, but I mean, do you have any idea or what's the plan to improve the graduation rate? And I know it may take some time to do that, but I think part of that is selecting the type of student to not only improve that student's academic potential and their career and that sort of thing, but as Dr. Elkins Johnson said, making sure that you're selecting the right student that has drive and will be consistent and develop some discipline, and that can definitely speak volumes since they were unable to do so in the traditional sense. So what's the plan?
Right.
Since you're the guy now.
One of the things that we're going to do is increase their time in the building for what it currently is to having them in the building more often. They currently come in at whatever time they show up and leave, whatever time they leave, as Dr. Elkins Johnson said. I have created a draft schedule. I've also sent in Mr. Upchurch to the master scheduler class so that all of our students will have a schedule in their hand to sit before a teacher 45 and 50 minutes every day with English, with math, with science, a face-to-face teacher to teach those subjects. So the increased time as well as the increased face-to-face opportunity for these students, because as I speak to the students unofficially, just in passing, they're telling me that, thank you, I need that, I don't learn like this, or whatever the case may be. And to go back to one of the things that Dr. Elkins Johnson said, they'll tell you on the front end that this is where they want to be and this is what they want to do. But when I asked the question, they said, I don't learn like this. I would say, sweetheart, why are you here? So I'm trying to convince them, if this is not the place, it's fine, it's okay.
Okay, and I do appreciate, well, let me say this. I've been on the board for a little over a year, and I do recall this annual report given last year, and it was much more rosy, okay? However, I appreciate your candor, and I can see that, the numbers are what they are, and it does sound like you are there. You're probably there for many reasons, but I'm hopeful that you're going to be able to make this an even more positive thing, and things will be more reality than what we've seen. I did want to ask this. With regard to the 2017 graduates, first of all, how do you find out? You just contact them and say, what are you doing now?
We keep contact with them on a regular, not a regular basis, but immediately following to see what they're doing. Many of them leave, and we know with acceptance letters for college, with acceptance letters to the military, or they're already employed. So we know a lot of it going out. My school counselor and my work-based coordinator sat down with me, and they basically shared with me the list, because I wasn't there last year, but now going in, I know how to make sure I start that information even earlier, but they helped me identify those students.
And it's great to see 17 employed. Do you know if those are full-time, part-time? You know the numbers on that?
It's a mix. I don't know the exact
It's a mix?
number. Yes, sir.
Okay, well, I would suggest this, because I'm big on mentoring. It would be wonderful if you can have some of these graduates to come back to the school periodically and speak to the kids so that they can see what they can become. Thank you.
Has that happened, anyone? It's happened? Okay. Again, I'm
Is
new,
it
but
consistent?
not consistent. I know it's not consistent.
Okay, all right.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shedd. Any questions, other questions or comments? Ms. Mackey.
Yeah, just one question. I don't want to belabor the point or be redundant. Quick question. You mentioned the student population at the school, just for the benefit of people who may not understand or be well versed with what exactly the charter school offers and its purpose. Can you give us a brief snapshot of what the student population, a typical student population for the charter school looks like?
Well, part of, part of the charter indicated that our school population should mirror the population of Richland 2 itself in regards to demographics. So our demographics are very similar in regards to Black, white, Hispanic, in those regards. Population-wise, in regards to the students, there was a cap at one point, 40, 20, 20. We did have a conversation. I think Mr. Plank was a part of that conversation where if we didn't have but 20 seniors, do that mean we cannot just kind of close the door to 20 bodies? So we wanted to make sure we just kind of kept our cap at 120, period. So our demographics, male, female, Black, white, Hispanic, that is very much a mirror of Richland School District 2, if that answered part of your question.
Yeah, I probably wasn't quite as specific. I appreciate that information. However, what would draw someone to the charter school? Is it students who want a more, a non-traditional learning environment? I guess I'm trying to get at what.
If you came to the school now, matter of fact, it was a huge project yesterday and today because of our visit tomorrow and celebrating School Choice Week. We have large posters that say, I love my school because, and so a lot of the students fill those out there on the wall in the school. And the recurring thing is the flexibility to attend school when I can. Many of our students work. They're trying to help support their homes. A lot of them are older students who are living on their own, right? And going back to the purpose, as you mentioned, the purpose was to try to make sure that we didn't lose a student altogether. So last year when 25 students walked across the stage, I was not the principal, but I was there on the stage. I was proud to see 25 babies cross the stage. That's my overall agenda, to get kids on the other side of the stage and into the workplace, the military, college, what have you.
That's what I was asking. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Mackey. Any other questions or comments? Dr. Mills, thank you for your report. I do want to make a comment that, one, we certainly want to honor and respect the board of the charter school, because you, as the board, and I'm looking at the Chairwoman Margaret Walden and so we appreciate you guys being here, and we certainly understand that the relationship is one of which we have oversight, but you have your own governing board, and want to just make that distinction. And also thank you for Dr. Caution Parker for being, we do have a liaison as part of our agreement with the board, and so, and we appreciate Dr. Caution Parker's work related to that. And we just, and Dr.
I want to say that for many years I was the former liaison and I expressed these concerns.
Yeah, and Dr. Elkins Johnson is the former liaison. So thank you for the comments, and we appreciate your report. Thank you so much. All right. All right, at this time, we're going to move on to 11.5, the report, budget timeline. Dr. Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, members of the board, we will have Dr. Harry Malley, who will come for us this evening to share with us the budget timeline for FY 2018-2019. Dr. Malley.
Thank you. This is in your board docs, and just to make sure that everybody's, so it's kind of just easier to read. It's easier to read.
Thank you, Tony. Not that anybody really wants to hear me anyway, I understand that. But you normally have workshops in early February and March. Last year, if you remember right, and remember, we didn't get a lot of information from the legislature. The legislature changed their budget, their session time. We went back, and Shelley Allen did the research. We had basically the last 3 years, the first inkling of information that we had from the Ways and Means was in mid to late March. Senate Finance didn't get out until mid-March to late March to early April over those 3 years. So one of the things that we are concerned with is coming to you and taking up your time with work sessions when we really don't have a lot of information. Now, what that does is it crunches the time frame in which we really have to do a lot of work those last 6 to 8 weeks of the legislative session and of our budget year. But we feel like it's better, more efficient use of your time. So we're still doing our work on our side in terms of getting your priorities, getting requests from schools, from faculty, from departments, from the executive staff. So and looking at our projections in terms of enrollment and demands on FTEs, we'll be doing that on our side. But in terms of the budget, in terms of what that looks like relative to our revenues, we really don't have a lot to talk about, and we thought it would be more efficient. So that's reflected in this timeline. You won't see a lot of work sessions until in April or so, because we want to be efficient with your time and make the most of those meetings in which we actually have some information. Now, that's optimistic, because if you remember last year, the legislature, even though we did it towards the end of the session, we still got changes towards the end of the year, even after you had approved the budget in late April, early May. So, but we're going to do that. So if you see anything in here that you have questions about, I'll be glad to answer. As you know, in the past, this has been fairly flexible. That is, if your sessions or your board meetings need to change, or if we have more information or less information at a time, we can adjust some of these dates. But this is an outline of the activities that we need to accomplish over the next 4 or 5 months to get the budget ready. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Miley. Any questions or comments from the board? Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
Thanks.
Okay, next up is our agenda items for next meeting, 12.1. Dr. Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, members of the board, for the February 13, 2018 future agenda items, we have listed special recognitions, students' expulsions and appeals, student readmission request. We will have faculty focus as well as a legislative update. We'll be asking for the approval of the 2018-2019 school year calendar, as well as the approval of policy revisions IHAM, which would be health education, IHAQ, career, transition to work education, and JLD, school counseling, with the recommended revisions. In addition, we'll be bringing before you the proposal of the following policies: DBD, determination of budget priorities; DBG, budget adoption process; DE, revenue from tax sources, debt; DFA, investments; DFC, federal aid; and DH, bonded employees and offices. We'll also have a proposal for 8% funding, as well as our second quarter financial statement report. Those are the items for the February 13th, 2018 school board meeting.
Thank you, Dr. Davis. Any other comments or additions that you'd like to see on next or future agendas? Ms. Agostini.
Mr. Chair, on the future agendas, I would like to hear about Project CARE, get an update on Project CARE. And additionally, in the future, I would like to have a discussion or a presentation on the R2I2 conference rooms and the purpose or mission, occupancy, and the review the rates.
Okay.
Fees. Thank you.
On that second one, we may, because it's about rates and some of the routine elements, that may come out as a board brief. Are you comfortable with that, or would you like to see it actually on as a presentation before the board?
I think I'd like a presentation.
Okay. All right. Just wanted to get clarity on that. Thank you.
Okay.
Any other additional items? Okay. If no other, we'll now move to item 13.1, public participation number 2. We have no one signed up, but if you'd like to address the board, please do so now. With no one coming forward, we'll move on to our final item before adjournment, 14.1, board and superintendent comments. I'll start, Ms. Agostini, with you, since your microphone is on.
My microphone won't turn off. It's the 2 meetings in a row, and I have to keep putting it to the side. It just stays on the whole time. I'm worried about having a hot mic. A lot of people are getting in trouble these days for that. So I'll just be brief and thank the presenters and hope that everybody.
Thank you. Ms. Shad.
Ditto.
Thank you, Ms. Shad. Dr. Caution Parker.
I'd like to say thank you to everyone for a wonderful, wonderful board appreciation dinner. And we really do deeply appreciate all of the hard work that went into that, and understand that we appreciate you. You all are doing all the work. We definitely appreciate you. I want to thank Lonnie B. Nelson for the student focus and the gift this evening. That was very nice. I'm really impressed by the calendar process that we're using now. It's great. Keep up the good work. Hang in there. And very good and informative reports, especially the charter school. Dr. Mills, thank you very much. You're doing a great job.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Dr. Caution Parker. Dr. Elkins Johnson.
Again, just like to thank everyone for the presentations. Again, I'm going to come back to the charter school. Dr. Mills, thank you for what you're doing, what you're starting to do. Thank you for the team that you have in place. And most importantly, thank you for your integrity and your honesty in presenting the data, because as Mr. Shad stated before, the data was presented totally different for years, and that has always been my concern, and I expressed that concern. So I'm glad that it's okay to agree to disagree. And I'm very glad that we're on the right track for that charter school. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you, Dr. Elkins Johnson. Ms. Mackey.
Thank you for being here. For those that want to be here, bless you. For those that have to be here, bless you, bless you. And with regard to School Board Appreciation Month, there have been a lot of courtesies extended to us. Nice of these cards, notes, dinner tonight. We're here because we chose to be here. The things that no one has to do anything for us. So the things that you do, the nice, kind thoughts and sentiments, that's very gracious of you, and we appreciate it. You didn't have to do that. Thank you all so much. Bless you.
Thank you, Ms. Mackey. Dr. Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, let me begin with sharing some good news and a public service announcement. 3 of our academically talented high school seniors are candidates for the 2018 U.S. Presidential Scholars Program, one of the nation's highest honors for high school students. I am proud to say that these students are Michael Smith from Richland Northeast High School, Malika Lightborn from Ridgeview High School, and Duncan Winburn from Westwood High School. We wish our candidates good luck in the next round of selections that will lead to the naming of the class of 2018 presidential scholars in May. And as you may know, there are only 2 presidential scholars from each state. So we have 3 finalists right here in Richland School District 2, which is a tremendous honor for us. And an annual honor, I might add. There's a free tax help available for Richland 2 employees and community members making $65,000 or less, or for individuals $95,000 and under if you are filing a joint tax return. Contact the Richland 2 W.R. Rogers Center for more information and to schedule an appointment for February the 1st. This Saturday from 8 to 12, Richland 2 will be hosting a district teacher recruitment fair right here at R2I2. We're looking for premier educators to join our team. We're looking for educators who are committed to creating, investing, and sustaining in a culture and environment of excellence. This week is Public School Choice Week, and the South Carolina Department of Education will be holding the Transforming Public School Choice Conference right here in Richland 2 on Thursday, January the 25th. And I may add that they could not have picked a better site. We are true pioneers in the area of public school choice. As you all may know, after all, Richland 2 is the district of choice where every school is an excellent choice. Now, I want to take a few moments to reflect on the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Dr. King said that the function of education is to teach one to think intensely and to think critically. Intelligence plus character, that's the goal of true education. In addition to valuing education, Dr. King believed in the power of serving others. In fact, he believed that we all can be great just by the fact that we can serve others. I'm extremely proud of the fact that in Richland 2, our core values of learning, character, community, and joy shine brightest when we are using them to serve others. Something the Richland 2 family does extremely well all year long. It is quite fitting that during the same month we are recognizing one of the greatest servant leaders to champion education. We also recognize the public leaders who are advocating and supporting quality for education for all. Tonight, as part of our school district celebration of National School Board Recognition Month, our high school students leaders joined us for a special dinner in honor of our 7 school board members. We're grateful to this group for making the decision, developing the policies, and allocating the resources needed to sustain a culture of excellence where all are afforded the opportunity to maximize their gifts and talents. I'm honored tonight on behalf of the Richland 2 family to salute the Richland 2 board members and thank you all from the bottom of our hearts for your service to our students. We greatly appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you. Kind words. Thank you so much, Dr. Davis. Thank you, Dr. Mills, Karen Beeman, Dr. Arnold, Dr. Miley, Mr. Price for your presentations, Dr. Franklin, these doctors in the house. Appreciate the efforts you put forward, and thank you for the student focus tonight. That was wonderful. And I will also like to just say it's a real pleasure to be able to serve with my fellow board members. And it is beyond just boardsmanship. I also consider each of these board members friends as well. And it's a real pleasure and a blessing to be able to serve and be able to work together in a respectful and professional manner. So we appreciate tonight's hospitality, appreciate your service. And I leave with these, we have these sitting on the tables, these little wooden things with some questions. I know I stole them. Questions on to think, and I'll leave them with you. 3 of them I picked, just to consider as you think about our youths. But who is your hero? Kind of interesting. What's the best advice for a teenager? And then finally, what is your passion? So with that, if no objection, we will now adjourn the meeting. Thank you.